Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into something pretty fascinating. The connection between our own mind and mood, and the planets up in the sky, all seen through the really ancient lens of Vedic astrology. So let me just start by asking you this. Ever feel like your mind and your emotions are on a total roller coaster? One day you're feeling on top of the world, super clear, and the next, you're just kind of lost in a fog. It's something we all go through, for sure.
Well, it turns out there's this ancient system, Vedic astrology, that offers a pretty unique way of looking at these ups and downs. Think of it like a framework, a way to kind of map out our own internal weather patterns.
Now, to get this, we need to meet the two main players. First up, you've got the moon, or Chandra. This is all about our inner world, our emotions, our subconscious. You can basically think of it as the heart. And then we have Mercury, or Budha. This guy represents our intellect, our logic, our nervous system, basically the head. And according to this tradition, how these two, the heart and the head, get along is absolutely crucial.
So let's start with the heart, right? We're going to kick things off with the turbulent moon and take a look at how this system explains those emotional imbalances we all feel sometimes. Okay, so the core concept we need to get is something called an afflicted moon. It sounds kind of dramatic, but all it really means, according to the source material, is that the moon is in a tricky position in a person's birth chart. And that placement is believed to be a source of, you guessed it, emotional turbulence.
So you might be wondering, what actually causes this? Well, it can be a mix of things. The moon might be in a zodiac sign where its energy isn't as strong, or it could be placed in a more challenging part of the birth chart. And on top of that, it can also be influenced by the energies of other planets, like the heavy, restrictive vibe of Saturn, or these shadowy points called Rahu and Ketu.
And what's really interesting is that each of these influences is said to show up in a different way. The source suggests that Saturn's influence, for example, can feel like depression, loneliness, or just a really pessimistic outlook. Rahu and Ketu's influence, on the other hand, that's more about confusion, phobias, and those weird irrational fears that we can't really put our finger on.
So, what's the bottom line here? When you put all these potential influences together, the overall result that's described is this feeling of emotional instability. Anxiety, big mood swings, and just a general feeling of being emotionally off-kilter. Okay, so that's the moon. Now let's switch gears and talk about the other key player, the head. We're going to look at the restless mind and how this system decodes that feeling of constant mental overdrive through the planet Mercury. And just like with the moon, there's this concept of an afflicted Mercury. In this tradition, it points to a weak or challenging placement for the planet, and it's linked directly to that feeling of mental restlessness. That classic state of just overthinking everything. And the potential causes here? They're actually pretty similar in theory to what we saw with the moon. A restless mind might be connected to where Mercury is in the birth chart, or when its usually clear, logical energy gets kind of scrambled by the influence of other planets.
And I bet the symptoms here are going to sound super familiar to a lot of us. We're talking about a mind that just will not shut off. It's constantly in overdrive, which leads to all that nervous energy and makes it really hard to concentrate. And then that can just snowball into indecisiveness, social anxiety, and that awful feeling that you just can't get your thoughts out clearly.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the diagnosis, right? But this system doesn't just point out the problems. So now let's get to the solution part, harmonizing the planets and a whole toolkit for finding a little more balance.
So the source material explains that this tradition offers all kinds of remedies. Now, the goal here isn't to magically fix you or anything like that. It's really about strengthening and harmonizing the planetary energies that are believed to be out of whack. It's all about restoring a sense of equilibrium.
And what you'll see is that these remedies are really specific to each planet. For the emotional moon, they might suggest spiritual practices or chanting specific mantras, even lifestyle stuff, like wearing a pearl or just being near water. But for the intellectual Mercury, the focus is totally different. Different deities, different mantras, and even actions, like donating green items, because that's Mercury's color. So it's a very tailored approach to bringing things back into balance. So as we start to wrap this up, let's zoom out a little bit and look at the philosophy behind all of this. Because it's really about a holistic approach. It's about seeing the bigger picture.
This quote from the source really nails it. It says, "These remedies are meant to be a holistic approach, addressing the spiritual and energetic imbalances believed to be at the root of a person's mental struggles." The keywords there are holistic and at the root. It's not about surface-level fixes.
So if there's one thing to really take away from all this, it's this.
The Vedic system doesn't see our mental and emotional health as this separate, isolated thing. It sees it as deeply, fundamentally connected to our spiritual and energetic state. It's all one big interconnected system.
And that kind of leaves us with a final question to chew on. In our super-fast modern world, how can ancient wisdom like this, with its focus on cosmic connection and finding balance, help inform our own search for a little more mental peace? It's definitely some food for thought. Thanks so much for joining me today.